Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the Cedar Lake Redevelopment Commission public meeting of May 18, 2020 to order. Before we commence with the pledge of allegiance, just a quick note that we have some members at the public as well joining us via online live stream. Towards the governor's executive order related to COVID-19, in-person attendance limited. We have arranged a live stream of the meeting so those interested can view it from home. The meeting is slated to start at 6 p.m. You can view the meeting via our website at https://cedarlakein.org/view-town-meetings/ then click on view broadcast under the live broadcast. You must join the meeting during the link to participate during public comment. You can also raise your hand electronically to participate during the meeting. Due to the unique nature of this meeting, the town of Cedar Lake will accept public comment submitted electronically. If you have a question or comment, type on the bill.cedarlakein.org. Merck will ensure that all the conditions are shared with elected officials. Then we'll rise to the pledge. The flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Sarah, you want to call roll, please? Here.
Eric Burnham.
He's here.
There. Here. Present. Bob Carnahan.
I'm here, but is Doug Spencer and Joe Lee there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't hear them respond.
We're here, Bob.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. We've got assembled an part one consent agenda that includes approval of March 16, 2020 claims fund 404 in the amount of $1,112.57 and fund 804 in the amount of $6,625.59. And last, the clerk treasurer funds report. Is there a motion to approve that consent agenda?
So moved.
Support?
Who got the motion?
All right, we'll give the motion to Joe Lee. We'll give Randy second.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay. Any discussion? I do have one question. Jennifer's not with us tonight. Jill, let me know if you can assist. We're waiting on our spring tax draw. So at the present time, we're waiting on funds to be deposited into Fund 404. Is that accurate? Okay. Any idea how much we anticipate is going to be deposited into Fund 404 with that spring tax draw?
Pull a number out of the sky. With we've done some work, Nathan, on the financial side with our advisors, trying to pin down some property tax collection numbers, and nobody can pinpoint this with the late fees being waived, with the COVID situation. Who knows? I mean, it's we're hoping to get 80% of our normal, but we don't know when that'll happen, how much will come in. So usually we collect over 99%, 99.8 I think is our rate. So it's going to be a little different this year.
Okay.
Last year was 18,000. Round numbers, so if you calculate that, it's now a lot. So one of the things I was going to ask, we'll move on after consent.
Got it. Yeah. I'll make a note that says Jill's budget at the top of the list. Thank you, ma'am. All right, hearing no other conversation, all in favor, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, carries. Thank you all. Moving on to new business, we've got resolution number 2020-01, TIF revenues for consolidated Cedar Lake 133rd Avenue Economic Development Area. Can I have a motion? A second?
We want to have a reading of that resolution first, Nathan.
By title.
Oh, the entire title?
Here's the
More
title.
than what I did? All right. A resolution of the Cedar Lake Redevelopment Commission concerning the 2021 budget year determination for the need to capture incremental assessed valuation within the consolidated Cedar Lake 133rd Avenue Economic Development Area, allocation area, and all matters related thereto. A motion to approve in a second. So moved. Support. All right. Dave, do you want to share with us? This is something that we see every year. This is to.
Who made the motion and seconded it?
That was Doug, and Jolie seconded.
I want to
Thank
pull
you.
the mic a little closer to you and sit close to it. Got it.
Nathan, this is the annual TIF increment capture procedure that is required by Indiana law. The law is cited in the resolution. The worksheet is attached, Exhibit A, reflecting what we're supposed to deliver according to the statute. And it's ministerial in the sense that you probably want to capture all the increment. It might not be if you have changed your mind. So it's really all or nothing.
Well, speaking from the chair position, I'm of the mindset that we want to continue doing the good things we're doing for the town. So,
Yeah.
any comment from those that are joining us via e-means? Hearing none, all in favor, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, carries. Next, we have resolution number 2020-02.
I apologize, according to public access counselor, all votes have to be taken via roll call, doing this electronically, so Eric's vote will count.
Oh,
Of all in favor, we have to do a roll call on both of them.
all right. So we're gonna go back to the consent agenda. Sarah, do you want to take us through the consent agenda?
Well, somebody's got to be on mic to call it because Sarah's not on mic. Nobody could hear her.
Okay, then I'll do it. Jolie,
Yes.
Doug Spencer,
Yes.
Eric Burnham. I hear heavy breathing.
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer.
Yes.
Nathan Viss, yes. All right, we're going to step back to resolution number 2020-01. Eric Burnham.
Yes.
All right, Jolie.
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Randy Niemeyer,
Yes.
myself, yes. All right, thank you for that. All new things to learn in our COVID era. All right, moving on to resolution number 2020-02. The title to that one is a resolution of the Cedar Lake Redevelopment Commission concerning the 2021 budget year determination for the need to capture incremental assessed valuation within the SVT allocation area and all matters related thereto. SVT meaning, I believe, the Strachan Van Til location. Can I have a motion and a second?
Motion.
Randy, motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second, Jolie. All right, discussion. Dave, share with us what this is again.
This is a sub-allocation area that was carved out for the Strachan Van Til project many moons ago. It is set up as a district itself and requires the same type action as for the consolidated 133rd allocation area.
Okay.
Why was it set up that way, Dave?
It was set up that way to segregate it, first of all, from the then existing. We had two existing at the time TIF districts, one east side, one west side. We consolidated those and we segregated out so that there could be a capture for debt service to the Strax property improvements from the TIF revenue they were paying. The financing strategy really is what it was.
Any further discussion? Hearing-
That money is still being held in escrow, correct, Dave?
I don't know what your clerk's done with it, but I know that she's maintaining it. Whether it's in an escrow account or a combined fund somewhere, I don't know that answer, Bob.
All right, thank you.
Bob, to that point, at the last time we met, which I think was 2 months ago, we had given her direction to invest it. Sarah, if you can remind me tomorrow to follow up with Jennifer to verify that that has been invested. Our goal there was to earn a few more dollars in interest while we had use of it. I'll do a roll call. All in favor, Jolie Kovac?
Yeah.
Doug Spencer?
Yes.
Eric Burnham?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
And myself, yes. All right, continuing with new business, we've got 2 items underneath facade grants. Number 1 is an extension request from Kozlowski. That is the CPA group that came to us first. They had sent a request to us requesting that they have an extension of time to perform under the provisions of the facade grant approval for their building renovation. They sent a letter to us due to continuing issues related to the COVID-19 pandemic and experiencing unusual delays in obtaining qualified contractors and materials to perform the renovation. We plan to begin construction March 1st, where it appears the project will be significantly delayed. To remind the commission, we have a 180-day period within our existing application that persons or businesses have to complete the renovations. I respect the fact that Mr. Kozlowski recognizes he's into that period already, wants sufficient time, and rather than coming to us in August or September, he's asking for it now, which I appreciate. I had told him he could use his time judiciously, stay home, stay at work, that this seemed to be a very reasonable request. Probably just prudent to have on our records and minutes a motion and support to approve that 180-day extension. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'd like to make the motion.
I just had a question, just to be clear. It's 180 days, and then after that 180 days, now it's another 180 after that? I just wasn't understanding. Which
Yeah.
I'm fine with, I'm just curious. 180 after the original 180.
That is what he has requested.
Okay,
So a total of a 1 year
Okay,
together.
I second Eric's motion.
All right, discussion? Hearing none, we'll go for roll call. Jolie,
Yes.
Doug Spencer,
Yes.
Eric Burnham,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
myself, yes. All right, next we have underneath C2, the Young application 20-7. That was a request for an exterior deck replacement. Mr. DeYoung had sent an email back on Thursday, April 23. For the commission's recollection, this was a matter that we had tabled in order to discuss it procedurally. I think someone will have to move to untable it with support, and then we can discuss it again.
I'll make that motion.
All right, there's been a motion to untable. Is there support?
Yes.
Second.
Second? Bob, motion made by Doug, second made by Jolie. All right,
Okay,
discussion on that request from the commission. My sense is we can keep this brief. After we tabled it back in March, we quickly looked at the application form and realized that residential does not apply. This definitely falls underneath residential. And while we,
Nathan, I believe you got to vote on it to remove it from the table and bring it up again.
yes, I think
Not
we
for
removed it from the
discussion.
table.
Not for discussion. You got the motion in the second. Now
Right.
you're discussing it.
Oh, okay.
Any further comments?
Okay. Yeah, I think also that it hits me as it's a residential and not a commercial venture at all. You know.
The only part.
Yeah, you're right.
the only part
You're
this-
right, Doug. We did discuss that before, that the stairs and everything just go up to the apartments and it has nothing to do with the business.
Right.
Yeah.
And the only part of it that had to do with the commercial was the signage.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's a pretty simple interpretation.
And we granted him money for the signage.
Yes, we did. Okay. Then I think we have a motion and a second that is reignited here from last time to approve, if I recall correctly. Is that accurate, Sarah? Yes, I'm getting the nod, yes.
To approve?
I think a motion and support have been made before to approve. Approve what? His
You need to
request.
take it, you need to take the roll for removing it from the table, then you need a motion for some disposition. action.
Oh, I got you. Procedure, okay. I
Yeah.
forgot where I was at.
Procedurally, that.
Okay, let's roll call to remove from the table. Joe Lee,
Yes.
Doug Spencer,
Yes.
Eric Burnham,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
myself. Yeah. All right, and hold on a second. Jill is checking where we last left this one off. Actually, if I recall, I don't think we ever, I think Randy tabled it before we even got to a motion. I'm pretty sure.
It was my understanding that we were going to only improve the sign, and then he was going to come back and give us a price or something on the sign.
That's my understanding too.
I'm gonna get better at this microphone.
Well, that microphone, I think, has pretty good pickup, so you can stand up straight and just talking to it. Oh, Dave's got the good one? Okay, you've got, gotcha.
In your February 24th meeting, Jerry DeYoung was present to discuss his application, gave all of the information, clarified for member inquiry, the stairs are the only entrance for residential apartments that are located above commercial business. 3 apartments above and 3 commercial entities below. I clarified on the application the tax breakdown, noting the difference between the apartments and the commercial entity. Multiple discussions took place regarding the apartments being considered residential. The grant only included the commercial repairs. Recommended by Viss and seconded by Spencer that the wood deck and stair portion of the application be tabled for further review. I read an excerpt of the facade grant guidelines stating while exterior stairs, railings, and replacements are eligible and included, you're ineligible would be single-family residential and multifamily residential. DeYoung confirmed for Nehmeyer the stairs are the only access point for the residents. Members discussed the sign portion of the application and the total project is $13,310. DeYoung clarified for this, the sign is still secured on the pole and clarified for Usher that it had been like that since approximately December. The motion was made and seconded to award 15% of the sign replacement portion of the project.
Perfect, okay, awesome, thanks. So now we still have before us technically his request for approval for the first half of his facade grant application. We could either leave it hanging out there, we can move to approve it, we could move to deny it. Can you clarify first half? What do you mean so I'm viewing his application as being bifurcated. One portion was for the stairway, the other portion was for the signage. We approved the signage. The first portion, the stairway, we tabled. I make a motion to deny the stairway application. Motion has been made to deny stairway application for Mr. DeYoung for 9744 West 133rd Cedar Lake. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second is made by Doug. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, Jolie?
Yes.
Doug Spencer?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Nathan? Yes. All right. Jill, I'm at the point in my agenda where I have an asterisk and it says Jill budget.
One of the things we were discussing earlier with the consent agenda approval was the cash flow, collections, etc. One of the items on the redevelopment commission's general budget, not the TIP revenues reflecting, just that general budget, is the newsletter. So one of the items we're looking at cutting back on is the newsletter. $1,200 a month approximately. Printing costs and design costs. Most of the information by the time you get the newsletter out to residents right now with the situation, it's stale, it's dated. This month's newsletter itself is the updates to anything we have, programs to check websites. Everyone checks Facebook or call calling us. So foregoing this month's newsletter, as we're looking at cash flows, possibly going to a bi-monthly, quarterly, or it's available online, call us if you want it printed. We're gonna we would post this on our utility bills this month if the newsletter information is available on our website. If you need anything printed, let us know. Kind of outside of the public record request, if you need a calendar printed, we can print a calendar. Type of deal. So looking at maybe moving that to quarterly or electronic. Everyone.
So Jill and I had a conversation on the phone about it, and I thought that going with quarterly, giving people kind of updates on projects and different big things going on in town, and the smaller things, obviously the electronic stuff, the calendar, like you said, that can be all electronic. But if we went to quarterly, I think we'd have good material, pertinent material, give people real updates on things, or if there's consideration of certain items on the forefront, it can show them where they can find information. And that'll help to reduce the cost pretty considerably. I mean, you're talking about cutting 10 grand right there. So, you know, that's just, it's a smart move. You know, our website's very accessible, easy to navigate now. So I know that not everybody uses the internet, but I think this is a happy medium doing a quarterly.
The $1,200 a month, and I've often kind of questioned that in our budget that we have to always approve that there. Does that include the mailing of that newsletter?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the lithographic communication part is the mailing and stuffing it in with the utility bills. The Minuteman Press is the putting it together.
Right.
For us.
Right. It probably bothered me more so. It's like, how did the RDC get you know, strapped with that one? But still, as you guys are talking, you're looking for cutting there. So I definitely understand. And I was going to mention quarterly seems to sound like a good shot. You know, certain incidents. Pardon?
When we had the branding initiative many years ago, before I was even part of the Redevelopment Commission.
Right.
That was where the effort had picked up and how it. The Redevelopment Commission.
And I can see, like, if we have big projects such as, I'll take the roundabout for example there. Maybe then you kind of hit an extra month there or whatever out with the bills. But if you can save $10,000, that's a substantial amount there in a small budget like we have.
And again, we can look at different options too, as we're looking at cash flow. Maybe it's just a single page insert. Maybe we go all out and we get advertising for our newsletter, make it a little bit bigger, make it a separate mailing altogether, like some communities do. And then the advertising pays for it. Right now, we're looking at the cash flow and making sure we can pay for what we have. And again, as right, engage financial advisors on looking at everything. So this will tie into next year's budget as well.
I am for the quarterly. I'm not sure what the, you know, I know you guys answer the phone and you always help people and answer things, but if there's any way, like just even a calendar could be, you know, a few printed out and see if someone comes in and says they want to have something that's tangible, like older people. You know, yeah, I'm concerned with older people who really can't, you know, function with a computer. So that would probably be best. And again, like that, even younger people that don't have a computer at home know to go to the library or Facebook or things like on their phone. But older people might need something tangible to pick up here. So that's just my concern.
And the new, you know, the blurb on the utility bill would be something to the effect to reach out to town hall if you have any questions, because those who notice there's no newsletter in that will try to call us, you know, I didn't get my newsletter, and then we can explain it to them.
Sounds good.
Right now, we're trying to limit what's on the counter though for multiple people. So we'll print it on demand or have it in back in.
Okay.
What if you just eliminate it altogether and do it electronically? And if a senior wants a copy of it, they can come into town hall and get it?
We talked about that on the phone, Bob, about just going with the full elimination, it might be best to take a step right now. And if we see that the tax collections come in less than what we think, we can put that option on the table and just eliminate it. But keeping some kind of communication, it's been really useful. I'm sure you've talked to a lot of people that read that newsletter, depend on it, get their information from it. So keeping some sort of connectivity as part of our public service, I think is important. And this is a good first step. But you're right, Bob. I mean, there might be a situation come up once we figure out what our tax draw is, where we have to cut it all together.
And this comes out of the general fund, right?
It's the RDC general.
Yes, and I talked to Jennifer today, and she says we're about broke in our general fund.
It's getting tight. Very tight.
I just wanted to say that I get electronic newsletters, emails. So some people might ask for that sort of an option.
Mhm.
It could just be a blast every month too with that information. I don't know if that would be a program, if that would cost money, I don't know. But I agree
Right
that
now it's 300.
to send out,
Just
send
to
out
put the
something.
newsletter together,
Oh.
electronic, and make the electronic version that we have now.
Okay, but it doesn't get blasted to people who sign up for it. It does? You can sign up for it to receive it via email? You can put in your email address?
Through your utility bill
Okay,
is the only, we don't have a,
that's what I meant, like a newsletter that you get in an email and you can see it there. That's what I was talking about. Just an idea.
We're not quite there yet, Jolie. We're still, taking the steel off the wagon wheels and going to rubber. So we'll get there.
You save that one for tonight? Just asking.
He had a smile on his face this morning when he thought of that one. So I think if I recall, this goes back 4 or 5 years, but I think we made it a motion to approve the RDC to fund it. Yes, we approve it on a monthly basis. So I'm thinking what we should probably do is make a motion to amend the RDC's funding of the town newsletter from a monthly basis to a quarterly basis. Is that a motion, Randy?
I'll make that motion, Nathan.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Charlie made that a second. Any discussion?
When would the first edition be circulated on the new quarterly?
as we're looking at cash flow, we won't see that tax collection until the end of June,
So probably in August.
August, September. Prepare in August for distribution in September.
Gotcha. That's fine. Okay. That gives us time to change our mind too.
And we'll know better on the cash flow.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this. I just got a phone call last Saturday morning from a young couple in town who had read the last newsletter and said, hey, we've got an idea for some work in town. We'd love to see X, Y, and Z. And it was the newsletter that had triggered that outreach. So I think it's a positive communication tool with the constituents.
Yeah, honestly, with everything going on with COVID, people are actually reading their mail and opening those inserts and not just throwing them out. We've received several calls about the community crossing.
Yeah. All right, we'll call for the question. Jolie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Mr. Burnham?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Myself, yes. All right, thank you, Jill. Let's move right ahead into project updates while we have you up here.
So on your Lakeshore Drive and Klein roundabout, I visited this site today at 5 o'clock. You have drive entrances down, the concrete work that needed to be completed. Landscape work has started. Streetlights, the remaining streetlights have been installed or are in process of being installed. There are some areas I couldn't quite get to without driving completely illegally. As well as that coat of asphalt's down with your temporary striping on it right now. So they are moving ahead. Right now, the schedule calls for them to be on punch list items that first week in June, approximately June 8th. Be working on those items and creating that list, obviously, the week before. We do have some street committee members that will be joining on the final walkthrough. And I'd like to extend that same invitation to the Redevelopment Commission when we do that final walkthrough. If anyone wants to attend, let me know and determine if we need to advertise for a special meeting, if we have too many people out there.
When do you anticipate that'll be?
Probably that first week in June. Obviously, if they get done a little sooner, but Mother Nature seems to keep wanting to give us a little bit of rain.
Mr. Chairman, can I offer a supplement to the report?
Go for it.
So when the road was first closed recently for the finishing of the roundabout, we were not given any ample notice. It was given to Jill on Friday afternoon to close the road on Monday. Again, we have a project manager, inspector in American Structure Point, we've been down this road before. And I just want to remind everybody that when we go through the scoring process, it is an objective scoring process, but some of that needs to be put in the minds of people, the history, other projects that's part of the scoring, projects they've done similar in town, things like that. Remember this. We managed to get the road open for the florist sidewalk sale for Mother's Day. Charlie and Marilyn were rightfully pretty upset because after not having prom, no weddings, and minimal funerals, it's been a pretty tough start of the year for them. And luckily, we had a little cooperation there. But the fact that we didn't get the respect of notice of road closed on or after such and such date tells you a lot about the people we have working on our team. Not very good. So no, I won't attend that walkthrough. I don't want to see anybody from that organization.
They haven't submitted their final bill yet, I presume. American Structure Point?
No.
Okay. My suggestion is let's revisit this issue when we get that final bill. To Mr. Niemeyer's point, I think it's well taken. And I think we should re-explore once we are at that point as to whether or not we want to do anything. Any other updates, questions from those two updates? Okay. Thank you for that, Jill. Why don't we cut ahead to C and then we'll cut back to Dave for B. Crosswalk 13115 Lakeshore Drive.
So as you know, we've had a couple requests for crosswalks. So one of the things we were able to get is the community crossing matching grant, which includes the hot in place asphalt replacement going Morse Lakeshore Drive up to the fire department, picking back up Lowerman and heading around and picking up south end of town. The the parcels and project area that wasn't picked up by the South Shore subdivision improvements. So part of that falls into these areas that people are asking for the crosswalks. So I have it in the back of Don's head to kind of look at those areas as we're doing this project and what striping we can put in and what signage we will need. I would not anticipate putting anything in right now because we're just going to tear it back up. It would kind of be a waste of money at this point. I'll have a report tomorrow night of when we'll have that going out to bid. So we're going to be putting that out to bid pretty soon here. They were just finishing up a couple final comments with INDOT on a couple specs that we need to double check on.
Okay.
Right now, maybe, we've got it. We put some funding aside for it and anticipated working with these people, but right now, if we can fit it into the design, we'll fit it into the design. If not,
Do it
they
after.
have to come back and do something more creative.
Okay. Sarah, can you remind me tomorrow? We'll send a quick note, you and I, to these folks saying this is going to be the reason for the delay. It doesn't make sense to put it down. We're just going to grind it back up. So, okay. Awesome. Thank you. Dave,
We'll put together
Hood.
the costs
Okay.
as we go around.
Thanks. Hood project, Lust update.
Yeah, I don't have any update. We're scheduled for a court hearing on proceeding supplemental sometime later this summer.
Okay.
On the court's motion, as you may
Yep.
recall.
A couple other items I'm going to add to project updates. 3 items. Number 1 is our ongoing project that we've been discussing in executive session. Mr. Niemeyer and I had a very good telephone call this afternoon with the Veritas Group in regards to whether or not they would be interested in assisting us with that representation in that project. They said definitely. they sent to us a proposed work order. We've got an existing contract with them. What they do is anytime that there's new work, they send a new proposed work order so that we have verification and blessing as to them assisting with it. And then in conjunction with that, what they also sent along is an economic development process, which is a structured way of approaching projects to give both us as well as our partners in developments an idea as to how we collaborate and or work together. The commission is aware of where we stand with this lakefront development opportunity. Next step is the consultation of engineers, but before we get to that point, utilization of groups such as Veritas Group, I think, is important to A, assess the economic impact, and B, to give us some assistance along with Dave in developing a letter of intent. So what I'm looking for this evening is approval of this work order so we can continue that project moving forward.
Approval of 15,000.
Well, that's going to be spread out over time. That's kind of a cap. But this is what they anticipate is going to be their cost to guide us through this process over a year or so.
Okay, okay.
And I believe that can be paid out of the other redevelopment commission funds, the larger fund, correct?
We can.
Because of its economic development part of it. If I can supplement your report a little, Nathan.
Go for it.
So the conversation was spurred by the request by Schillings for some buy-in by the town redevelopment commission on the initial preliminary engineering, because there's going to need to be a road moved, right? There's going to need to be some design there as far as the parks. There's public property involved, including possibly the public works property. That's why that's also been an executive session item, because of the discussion of the land acquisition portion of this. So before we make any sort of move of agreeing to any sort of terms with a developer, it's necessary for us to have a point person kind of managing this project so we don't get into a situation where we set precedent. Let's say we split the preliminary engineering 50-50. That doesn't necessarily mean we want to do the rest of the project like that. So having things kind of separated out and having a team that information flows through that's looking out for our interest and managing the process is what we've done with the Carperi Canada project. And that has gone extremely well to this point, kind of overcoming barriers, gaining more information, getting a better foundation built each step of the way. It's a tedious and tricky process sometimes. And before you know it, if you're trying to negotiate it yourself, you can find yourself locked into a trap. So not saying that partners do these things nefariously, but it's all part of a business relationship. And our staff here is minimal staff. They don't have necessarily the economic development expertise like these people. Marlon, the gentleman who will do most of the work, did a lot of the planning work for the collar counties of Indianapolis. He has a lot of experience in planning and negotiation. So, and then they have a team of people that this is what they do. So this sort of work order is something that will serve us very well as we put together something that will be a massive increase to our tax base there. But not only that, but a huge public benefit for the improvement of a public space along the lakefront, as well as the retail and living opportunities in what is a livable center. So it was a fruitful discussion, and that flow chart that they put together, Mr. Jensen said we're probably on step 2 right now. And the next step would be the letter of intent for the first piece of our economic development partnership, which would only be that preliminary engineering. The rest of it would be negotiated separate, set up separate, totally different documents. So that was kind of the spirit of the discussion, some of the nuts and bolts.
Thanks, sir. Any questions for Randy or myself? Someone willing to make a motion?
And you mentioned that, I'm sorry that I came in late there, that both the, I guess I shouldn't say both one, I'm just talking about, Schilling is still very interested in gung ho on this project to roll here.
I get emails probably once every 2 weeks asking for a status update. I just spoke with Mr. Slager last week, Friday morning, to give him an update, and he expressed that he has the owners asking him on a weekly basis, where are we at?
It's great.
I think, and I think having a professional at the point, Nathan's got a full-time job, right? Most of us work. It allows for a continual flow of information without there having to be kind of this fracturing of our group, where that information comes back to the RDC through Nathan, gets directed through Veritas and to the developer. And that way it's clean, it's been vetted, and there's proper communications, very high professional level.
I'll make a motion to go ahead with this, the 15,000 cap in order to get Veritas Group to start on this, helping us.
Motion is made to approve Veritas work order number 8, Lakefront Development Representation. Is there a second?
I'll go ahead and second that.
Second made by Doug. Discussion we've had. Any further? Hearing none, we'll start with you, Eric. In favor?
Yes.
Jolie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Nathan? Yes. All right, thank you all. Also on that point, I thought it helpful, we've talked briefly about this before, to start working on a dartboard of principles or ideas that would guide this particular project. And so what I assembled here are some items that I've been ruminating on over the past couple of months. And my thought process behind them is that as we go through this process, as we hopefully get into the design phase, development phase, I think it's critical that we have key guiding principles that we can say to our partners: how does this improve quality of life? How does this enable business development? How does this create lake accessibility? How does this create walkability? This may not apply to each and every one of our projects, but with this specific one in mind, recognizing how unique and big it is, I felt it prudent to start developing some guiding principles. I'm not saying we have to adopt them. That's up to the commission. Just wanted to throw it out there as a suggestion, maybe a dartboard to think about. And next time we can hone in on whether or not we all agree these should be the guiding principles for this particular project. I was talking to Doug before we started, and you mentioned there's a lot on walkability and lifestyle and not a ton on business. Is that where?
Yeah. But as you just explained to me here, that you're talking about on each project that we look at here, we should ask ourselves and guide ourselves with these principles that you're mentioning here. Okay.
So one of the things that Veritas did for the council when we first engaged with them at the end of 2017, when we put out those videos of Midway Gardens in this area, kind of an enhancement to our comp plan, was we sat down and did some strategic planning. And part of that was doing some things like this. It might not be a bad idea if we get a little time here in the next few months to really look at putting together one of those work sessions where we bring the consultant in and we really spell this out. We walk through this project. We even walk through the Carperry Canada project. So as we get into the detail portion of this, how do we want all of this to look? How do we want this to feel? What impact on the community are we looking to make? So while we can't necessarily dictate to business how they operate, we can put out there some of those visions and thoughts and goals of the community and see where we can create those points of intersection through a little bit of strategic planning.
Randy, that's a great point. And I think this particular project has a lot of momentum despite where we don't know the economy is right now. I think there's still a lot of momentum behind it.
Smart people are buyers right now.
My suggestion is if everyone, right.
Made a lot of money today.
Yeah, right. It was a good day. If we can all bring back next meeting 5 wants that we have for this project, what would you want to see, or what would you dream of seeing or having here? We put those together. We're going to have 25 different or collective items. And I think that'll really help us get towards that goal if we can do that. That'll be some homework for everyone. 5 items for next time.
Well,
Thanks, Professor.
Going back to your business end of the thing, as you were speaking before, I was writing different things down, looking at each one of these different goals that you had here, about improving quality of life for residents. I'm thinking, well, what can we do for them? What we can do for that? You know, like the farmer's market, and maybe a bit of a, you know, music in the park type of a, you know, theme type, every couple of weekends a deal. But I guess if you start focusing on the projects that we have coming, as well as, am I still guessing that the YMCA is still rolling in onto the golf course there? I mean, there's another great player that's coming into our town there. You know, at first, in fact, I kind of had to push back on some of the residents on the South Shore there. I go, wait a minute, that could have ended up to be a big housing community. Then what do you got there? I says, now you've got a great green space in your backyard.
Mhm.
And I would really like to see the DNR rethink or think about our wetlands areas that they have there. That's one of the biggest wetlands in the state.
Mhm.
And they don't do anything to it, but if we can get them active in doing things for it, it would be just fantastic for not only the Y, but the residents of the town, as well as those people that live right there on the South Shore.
Yeah, while there's some negative forces in play right now and some uncertainty from a financial standpoint for individuals, businesses, government, everybody, there's all kinds of uncertainty. There's a lot of opportunity too. So this stuff you're putting out, Nathan, is a great starting point for that conversation of creating that platform for the capitalization of the opportunity that's being created. So Doug, those points are right on the money. Yeah, we can sit scared, or we can continue to think about what's next. We don't know when things will settle down or come back, but I got a feeling, knowing people of this country, once everybody gets over the fear, we're going to be okay. We'll get where we need to be again.
And I think critical to this project that we're talking about, we can't go public with it yet, but I think really critical for us to keep in mind is the amount of green space, walkability, and access that all members of the public have to it. That's what's going to really define this area. And one of the key things you just mentioned is the ability for music venues, etc. We can't have huge here, but let's think big enough to allow that in small proportions.
And remember, part of Carperi's concept proposal here was to have an enhanced concert venue.
Yep.
With some outdoor seating and terracing.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of those things in conversation at play that I think it is time for us to really dive into the details and do some strategic planning of our own and spell that out.
We've talked about for many years that it keeps going back to accessibility, walkways, getting connected, and living where I live without sidewalks. It's even hit me even more during this time, because when your children can't go anywhere on foot, when I live in where I live, because it's not safe to go out and walk on the road at their age, I realize how important that is. And that's really why I'm really excited that we have been having Veritas Group help us, because bringing in their wisdom of all the experiences that they've had bringing communities in, full circle and getting these things done, and seeing they can bring those visions where they brought all the things that they've done in other communities. And that's why I thank you guys for the wisdom to know that we don't know everything, but their expertise will help that a lot. So as a resident here, that's why I'm thankful that we bring in consultants on these sorts of things. So.
Thank you for that, Jolie. I've got two other items here. Before I forget, Sarah, can you make a note to remind me that we should look at Hollywood, Florida, and their boardwalk that goes through a swamp marsh area? I just had an idea while Randy was talking. All right. Mr. Niemeyer, you had emailed me on Friday in regards to a proposal from Veritas Group wanting to work with an economic development team.
So we've talked, I've had a couple of phone conversations with a company called Genovis. Genovis was founded by some people that used to be a part of the IEDC, Indiana Economic Development Corp. In my experience with the Indiana Economic Development Corp as it relates to the Carperi project, it's kind of a difficult road to navigate, okay? And these people have the expertise of how to line up economic development projects with the right state support. And that's kind of what they do, is that initially, and Dave and I talked to them as well, initially they would contract with the town, but then they would eventually be working for the developer and paid by the developer to do business location services. Some of those support things that the state does for moving expenses for certain businesses, those are things we have no part of. But we do have a part in creating that initial economic development package. Now, with the current financial straits, I would suggest let's take our time with Genovis. But it was something I wanted to put in front of everybody, because as we move forward with the Carperi development, it's going to come back to the RDC. Right now, it's been in the council's hands because of the land acquisition part of this, the option agreement that's on the 114 acres now. That was all the council's business. But once we get over the hump on those items, then it's going to come back here. And that's where we're going to need to consider how we manage the economic development incentive package to where we get the most bang for the buck for the town, which will include some state money that we don't have to take out of our budgets. And a consultant like that can connect those dots, as well as how we formulate and structure those detailed items that are going to be necessary to support the initial part of that development. So Genovis kind of is that connecting point between the town and the state as it relates to the foundational support that the state offers to these projects, because most of it's on the back end. So we can take our time with this.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things I wanted to get in a conversation piece. And that way, as things roll along and we see what we have or don't have, we can make some of those decisions on how we connect these projects.
I think, Randy, what you raise is a really critical point. Oftentimes with small town governance, we look at private partners as our partners and our only partners, so to speak, in addition to our constituents. But it's good to remind that the state is a partner as well. And it's all too easy to forget about them as being an asset in some of the big things that we've got going on.
Especially with that one being agriculturally based. The state and the Farm Bureau and people are going to have a huge interest in it. And we don't know how to direct that part of the process. We don't have an economic development expert on our payroll here, nor are we going to. So this is a matter of kind of an a la carte basis, utilizing people's expertise and paying people like we did tonight with Veritas, agreeing to things like that are much lower cost than paying somebody 150 grand a year to work in your office as an economic development expert. These things have huge value as we get to those parts of the journey.
Jill, who goes to RDC? Is it you that goes to the RDC on our behalf?
RDA?
Or RDA?
That's NERC she goes to. The RDA is something different than NERC.
Do we have an advocate with the RDA?
But that's also where Genovis would come in too, with some of that,
Well, but I'm just thinking
to connect those points.
with the first project that we just hired Veritas for tonight, I think it'd be prudent to start a confidential conversation with them about it, because we're now involving the lake potentially, roadway, safety. I think it's a big enough project that we could be in conversation, dialogue with the RDA.
I think the best initial point is to have a guy like Doug sit down once restaurants are open with Rick Niemeyer. Rick has some influence over that as that first connecting point. And once we get to a phase of these projects where we've got something to show the RDA and say, hey, look, we've got paper signed, we've made this much progress. We're going to want some support as this goes along.
Yep.
And then we can start to engage people like Genovis to help those pieces connect.
Doug, are you willing to be our state liaison for this?
Yeah, I've been talking with Rick many times. In fact, he was the one that kind of, in me pushing him, got the one guy from Everblue Lake Solutions to come here and talk with the group there or whatever. And right now, I look at our situation where we've got two major players that are coming to our lake, the YMCA and Chilling. They're coming to the lake, and they want that lake to be a very usable lake for them.
Oh, by the way, Carperi mentions it in almost every communication.
And then
They're
Carperi
interested
thing.
too.
Yeah, trifecta.
If there is a good plan put together, we've got the ability possible to bring the funds in to make that happen. one of the great things, especially when we talk about not having that property over there, is that we have the possible, we need to get rid of the dredgings that are coming out of that lake. And that's huge. There's a lot that has to come out of the lake. That's big. I mean, you had 114 acres, and that was going to be, you know, when you pull out that much, it's going to be tough. But you have a whole golf course here, and or the property that's right next to it. You have you know, a whole golf course there that can possibly be used, and because they can't possibly jump into that whole, how many acres is that golf course all at once, the YMCA. But anyway, you've got a whole golf course, but you have a lot of avenues to go to. And I just don't think that the Army Corps is, it's been 30 years. It's not going to happen. They're not going to.
Especially with the current federal budget situation. I mean, we have to be honest with ourselves. Are we going to see Cedar Lake-like projects funded over the next decade? Probably not.
Right. And so one thing, I look back at the RDA, but then I worry about, well, shit, they may not have that funding that they had before either, but they have spent a lot of money on the north end of our, you know, of Lake County, Lake and even Porter County there. They spent a lot of money on the North Shore there. They could use.
They haven't been as much regional as they should be.
Well,
but we have to come in with a good plan. We have to give, can't remember his name, a good plan.
Bill Hanna.
Bill Hanna needs, because I spoke with him a little bit. He needs a good plan, not just something that Doug sits down and writes off. You know, he needs a good plan.
And that's also where the engagement of professionals like what we're talking about at the right times puts all of those people in the room with a good plan. They all speak the same language. They know how to connect the dots. That's where we start to see some of that kind of support, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, it's critical too, I think, to tell the state is we're building not-for-profit on the south end of the lake in a highly profitable area that otherwise could be property taxes.
Mhm.
You're getting a lot of sales tax revenue from them that we're not going to catch.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, we don't get that one. At first it hit me. Gee, we lost property tax there. Wow.
Yeah, that's okay. That's the big picture benefit of that.
It's huge.
Be tenfold.
So are you okay with keeping on our back burner the reminder that how are we going to connect with the state?
Yes, sir. It's been a couple months since I've been meeting with Rick, but it looks like the time is starting again here with
Make sure Rick wears his mask.
okay.
All right.
While they're on summer hiatus, why wouldn't we invite Rick to come on down and have some talking with us?
Well, I about every Sunday I used to meet with Rick there.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, and it was, you know, I mean, the guy's got a good brain on his head, that's for sure.
Even though he's a Niemeyer?
He knows government, you know. He's taught me a lot, you know.
Thanks, Dave.
Sorry, Rick.
No, you're not. But
All right.
it's okay.
Last item is this. As I mentioned earlier, I had a young couple call me last week. They had a question about, we're doing a significant amount of new road work on Morse, I understand. And their question was, are we able to put a sidewalk there and or make portions of Morse walkable? I get it if we can have a sidewalk, but I know a lot of communities, you can do a lot with paint. Paint can narrow roadways, paint can restrict traffic to slow down, and paint can create pedestrian areas. So is this something that we are
So
doing?
from what I know about that project, it's basically a hot in place project. It's lift it up, heat it up, put it back down. And what Bob would call heat scarification. So it doesn't,
And then they put an overcoat over it.
right, so it doesn't contemplate the widening of the road at all. That would be a huge budget for something like that.
But are we able to take off a couple feet on either side and create a pedestrian walkway similar to like what Valparaiso or Hammond has done?
Yeah, that would require an expansion of the roadway footprint to do that. You'd have to have a little more blacktop than what we are currently budgeted for. I agree with you, Nathan, and in a council meeting, I kind of protested that we're doing that sort of project on Morse. I know it needs attention, but that road needs a full rebuild. It needs water lines run along it. It needs sewer infrastructure. It needs stormwater, and it needs accessibility for pedestrians and a center turn lane. So we're spending money on it now, which means it's probably not going to see another dime for the next decade at least. And we're going to end up with a major corridor here that's going to be obsolete pretty fast.
Did we already let the project?
The project was scoped for the community crossings grant, so we kind of have to stick to that, or if we want to expand the project, then it's going to be out of pocket. So,
And our funds are dwindling. That's why we're cutting some of the cost in different departments.
right, so we don't know what the redevelopment commission TIF revenue collections are going to be. We have certain debt obligations already. If we went to another debt issuance for another $3 million project, with this unpredictability, it might be a little difficult. With the current one that we have on the books, kind of a 50-50 thing, we're looking at, a little over $1 million total and half of it being paid for. So it's a difficult project. It's something I want to see in the worst way on any of these thoroughfares that we redo, is that extra couple feet of pavement for pedestrian use. But unfortunately, this project doesn't include that.
Okay.
I don't disagree with you, Nathan.
Anything else for written communications or public comment?
There are no public comments submitted via email. There are no hands raised on our live stream on Zoom.
Anything else from the commission? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all. See you next month.
Good night.
Good night.
Shut off.